Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back. So this video is an offshoot of the video I produced 2 days ago, where I said there were quite a few comments which were pretty unkind in the video made by CNA News Asia, right, starring Keith from Investment Modes. There were comments that say, "Why, this person achieved financial freedom so early, only possible because he's not supporting parents and he has no children," right? And I said, yes, that's true. When you have fewer dependents, it's easier to achieve financial freedom. But it doesn't mean that people with children to bring up and with parents to support cannot achieve financial freedom, or at least the situation shouldn't stop them from trying to achieve financial freedom, right? So this topic of children is something I've blogged about on and off over the years, and it is quite sensitive. Okay, it can be very sensitive, very controversial because of the views that I have, right? And I have said half jokingly before that to avoid wealth destruction, we might think twice about having children. Okay, some of you might just turn off, change channels now because you don't like to hear that. But I mean, it's a fact. It's a fact, right? But it doesn't mean that by destroying some wealth, is a bad thing. Absolutely a bad thing, because if it brings you joy, right, it's an intangible kind of benefit, right? But you do you, right? There's nothing wrong, right, with having deriving joy from spending money. I mean, all of us do that. We spend money on different things that will bring us joy, right? It's just that we spend money on different things, right? So I spend money on a new gaming laptop, for example. Recently, I think last year in December, and I said it was a birthday present for myself because my old laptop was sputtering, after 5 years, 6 years. So I bought myself a gaming laptop, right? I can say that's wealth destruction, right? It's $1,000 something that could have stayed in the bank account, right? But we have to spend our money somewhere, right? So anyway, before I ramble on, this video is about how to have children and still have a comfortable retirement, right? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I have children to bring up, I have parents I have to provide for, therefore I can't possibly retire early, I cannot have a comfortable retirement." Well, this throwing some ideas to those people who say something like this, and I've said before that, it's a fact that Singapore is an expensive country. And it's definitely very expensive to bring up children in Singapore. In a blog post many years ago, I said at that time I estimated like $250,000 per child, from childbirth to graduation from a local university. $250,000, right? Now that might be $350,000 or $400,000 per child by now. I don't know, but it's definitely an expensive thing, bringing up children in Singapore. So having a healthy dose of pragmatism is even more important because of this. And I've said before, we want to stay pragmatic, right? In many ways, it's not just when in investments, right? In our life as well. So I say for young couples, it seems like the most natural thing to spend money freely on their children, right? But it might be a good idea to hold back a little, right? And I am not suggesting depriving children of necessities. I'm suggesting not depriving ourselves of a comfortable retirement. Okay, let's get that point out first, right? See the difference, right? And I shared a story in my blog before about how a reader discussed with his wife on whether some of the enrichment classes they sent their 2 children to were necessary, right? And he knew they were spending a lot of money on such classes, but he was surprised at how much money they were actually spending. So apart from classes which were deemed essential, lifestyle classes like tennis lessons were axed. And this helped them to save about $600 a month. And if you think about it, that's like $7,200 a year, right? So, and let us assume that their children were to take classes for 6 years. That will amount to $43,200 in total, right? Now imagine if they were to do a CPF top up, right? Use the money to top up to their CPF as a special account, and they get 4% risk-free rate, and they also get income tax relief at the same time. How is that not a good thing, right? So identify what are needs and what are wants. Do away with the wants mercilessly and simplify the needs. That's why I always say keep our needs simple and our wants few, right? And there was just one example of how I said we are not depriving our kids of necessities, right? We are still providing for them, but bear in mind that whenever we're in the process of providing for our kids, we don't want to deprive ourselves of a comfortable retirement, right? And often whether decisions are good or not will become clearer after some time. I mean, hindsight is always perfect. So spending freely on children now might seem like the natural thing to do, but in our old age we might actually regret it, right? I mean, I'm crossing fingers, hopefully people don't regret in their old age, but I think many people do. Anecdotal evidence tells me that many people do. So I shared in something that appeared in an article in Money Smart, that there was a lady who was in her 60s and she complained about spending too much money on her 3 children in the past, right? And she and her husband didn't want their children to be saddled with huge study loans and paid for their tertiary education. And then she complained later on that her children were wasteful and took everything for granted, right? And she said she should have used the money for her own retirement instead. She should have just used the money for her own retirement instead. But because she provided for all the children, she couldn't retire, right? And she said her children didn't even appreciate the sacrifices that they made, that the parents made for them, right? And there was another person who said that she and her husband spent almost $1,000 every month sending their daughter to all types of classes, from ballet to abacus to piano lessons, and they didn't even have a piano at home anymore, right? So I know that thinking about children as consumption items might seem unfeeling, right? But it is the truth, right? That they are consumption items. And it's just a dash of pragmatism when we look at things like, and we don't want to overconsume like with everything, right? So because overconsumption inevitably will set us back financially, right? Is just reasonable to think like that. And in blog post I said that if I were married with kids and in my 40s, what would I do? Okay, and I say as we age and take on more responsibilities, and then that includes getting married and having children, or some people don't have children, but let's say having children, we might start to look at things differently, right? Suddenly we are not so carefree, right? And we have to provide for our loved ones with a better life too. But we have to draw the line somewhere, right? And one wrong move, we might jeopardize not only our own future, but the future of those who are dependent on us, right? So it's a heavy responsibility. Parenthood is not for everybody. It's not for me, for sure. Yeah, but there are a few steps that we can take, right, to ensure that we can have a comfortable retirement while still providing or bringing up children. right? And in a recent reply to a reader, I said we want to take care of the basics first, right? Number one, have an emergency fund, right? Enough to cover fixed expenses for 12 to 24 months, right? Number two, make sure we have the necessary insurance in place, HNS, right, which are all the shield plans, critical illnesses, right? We need coverage for that, right? I say it's one of the insurance policies that I would buy, critical illness coverage, term life insurance, right? And that is something I'll say buy that rather than buy whole life, buy term life, because it's a lot cheaper and get a bigger sum that's covered, right? And the term life insurance should cover remaining mortgages of our properties and our dependents' needs until they graduate from tertiary education, for example, right? And there is such a thing as reducing term policies, right? So we pay less premium as that policy progresses over the years, right? And the coverage also drops lower over the years because our dependents are growing up, for example, and might not require as much financial support from us anymore. So there's such a thing called reducing term policies. Ask your insurance agents about it. Number three, plan for retirement, and that is where our investment will fit in, right? And if we feel we are overexposed and we're uncomfortable, then we reduce our exposure, because losing sleep over anything is a bad idea. And number four, I say I like the CPF special account, and we should try to max it out as much as possible, as soon as possible, and let the measure of compounding do the heavy lifting, right? And I say as a tool for retirement funding, this is as easy as it gets, right? And number five, any excess money then goes into a war chest to wait for investment opportunities, right? Now, if we take those 5 steps, right, and while we provide for our children, and remember to simplify the needs and try to cut away all the wants, right? Focus on just the necessities, and we can ensure that we will be able to provide for our kids comfortably, and at the same time not jeopardize our retirement, right? So this is just something I've talked to myself. If AK can talk to himself, so can you. Bye-bye.